Friends, in this small presentation, I am trying to explain the concept of historical materialism. There are two terms here, historical and materialism. Uh, History implies that everything is changing. Imagine that if there is no change of any type, change in economy, technology, religion, society, social relations. Can you write history? No. So history implies that everything is changing. If everything is changing, there is also a cause of that. And according to Marx, the cause of change is the change in the forces of production. Now, what is forces of production? And in the next slide, I will explain what is forces of production. Now, before Karl Marx and after Karl Marx, there have been many other varieties of theories of change. So, according to Marx, the cause of change is the change in the forces of production. Then what not? It is not the circulation of elite as proposed by Pareto, or wars and political conflicts as often thought by people, or culture as often assumed by anthropologists, or personality as often assumed by psychologists, or evolution as in the functional theories of society, or cyclical as thought by Sorokin, or divine as per the Hindu theory of yugas, but only the forces of production. The development of forces of production makes the history. What is forces of production? Forces of production refer to capital, land, raw material, technology, scientific knowledge, infrastructure, humans or labor, currency, including digital currency of today. Digital currency did not exist in Marx's time, but today, if you have to define forces of production, you can include digital currency also. Everything that is part or that contributes to the process of production refers to forces of production. Means of production is a part of that. What is that? Means of production refer to all those forces of production that can be legally, the term legal is very important here, that can be legally owned by some group of people. For example, landlords or capitalists. Further, corresponding to each stage in the development of forces of production. So forces of production develop in stages, and therefore the relations of production also develop in stages. So let me repeat, corresponding to each stage in the development of forces of production, there are relations of production or class relations, which are specific and unique to those forces of production. Have you ever thought like this? Think whether a feudal society could permit trade union of slaves. Trade unions of workers are common in capitalist society, but you have not ever heard of trade union type organization of slaves in feudal society. It was not possible. Or can you imagine that the IT sector of today, based on artificial intelligence, can run through master-slave relationship? Can it happen that masters means owners of means of production are considered to be masters, and engineers, managers, IT workers, experts in artificial intelligence are treated like slaves? No, it's not possible. Or Varna Vyavastha of ancient India, that was one kind of relation of production. It is not possible to run industry of today, or it is not possible in the age of globalization to run a society on the basis of Varna Vyavastha. There are two more terms here which need a small clarification: infrastructure and superstructure. Now, these relations of class, relations of production, for which we can also use the term class, relations between classes. A class that legally owns the means of production, and another class of workers which contributes to work or production process. Now, these are classes. And the relations of classes are called the infrastructure, because all other things of society are based or are developed on or built upon the infrastructure of classes or relations of production. So the superstructure, the term superstructure refers to all other things of society which are built on the relations of production. What are those things? Values, beliefs, religion, family, law, morality, and education. That is why as forces of production develop, values, beliefs, religion, family, law, morality, and education also change. For example, in a feudal society, slaves and serfs believe in God or religion, and this controls their behavior. In the age of globalization, secularism is very common, or more and more people are becoming agnostics or atheists. Because you don't need a God to maintain the relationships of production in the age of globalization or in a advanced capitalist society. In a capitalist society in crisis, only when the capitalist society is in crisis, means not in the early stages of capitalism, but as capitalism advances and contradictions and crises of capitalism become more clear, revolutionary consciousness moves workers to organize against the capitalist exploitation. Otherwise, why I'm saying so, I want to say that the role that religion plays in feudal society is played by the dominant legal framework of society in a capitalist society. Okay. Uh, so workers think that the relations of production in capitalist society, the relations or the legal framework that governs that legal social framework, or those values or beliefs which govern the relationship between capitalists and workers are okay. They are legitimate. They are natural. There is no alternative to them. Only in a capitalist society, in its advanced form, when it experiences contradictions, conflicts, fall in production, and there is crisis, because of that, workers develop revolutionary consciousness, which goes against the religious principles. And workers start organizing against the capitalistic exploitation. So religion is replaced by revolutionary consciousness. So corresponding to each stage in the development of forces of production, there are different types of classes or relationships between classes. They constitute the infrastructure of society, and values, beliefs, religion, family, law, morality, politics, nature of politics, all of them are built upon the class relations. And as society changes, everything changes. Relations of production change, and superstructure of values and beliefs also changes. The major stages in the development of history, or in the unfolding of history, or in the development of society or forces of production are: in the primitive society, there is a primitive society, they, in which uh, there, uh, there are no developed tools and techniques of production. It's a kind of ancient tribal society. So people go together for hunting and for conflict, survival, conflict between tribal groups, and so everything is collective. There are no tools and techniques of production. And whatever they do or whatever they consume, food based on forests, animals, whatever they consume, is collective. Everything is collective. And therefore, they do not have classes. Primitive society does not have classes. There is no class formation in ancient society. There. Some people believe that uh, some uh, thousands of years ago in India also, Karl Marx believed that in pre-capitalist India, uh, because of lack of development of productive forces, there were no classes. And whatever groups existed, varnas or castes or whatever, that's a different issue and will require more time to be spent on, was developed in the framework of cooperation. Uh, the norms were collective and production and consumption, both of them were collective together. There was a feeling of togetherness. So their religious beliefs were also of a different kind, equality and one God. As tools and techniques start developing, in that ancient society develops another kind of relationship between masters and slaves. Because now it is possible to take more work from slaves than you need to spend on maintaining or on survival of slaves. If you spend the same amount on slaves, which slaves require to survive, then master-slave relationship makes no sense. So as tools and techniques develop, you have masters and slaves. And there are classes, and between these classes also develop contradictions. What is in the interest of masters is not in the interest of slaves. What is in the interest of slaves is not in the interest of masters. Masters want to take more and more work from slaves, and slaves must avoid work, or slave must ask for no more necessities. Then comes the feudal society. Settled agricultural society is a kind of feudal society, although one may say that the nature of feudal society in India was quite different from the nature of feudal society in Europe. But after all, both the societies in pre-capitalist stage were feudal. So there were landlords and a chain of vassals, means hierarchy. Landlords and hierarchy, and at the bottom are the workers who have no control over means of production, and they own only their own labor power. That's all. And again, there are classes, and these classes have contradictions of interest. What is in the interest of landlords is not in the interest of serfs or native peasants or slaves. And what is it in the interest of slaves or serfs or relatively free trading community may not be in the interest of landlords. Then emerges capitalist society. Next stage in the development of forces of production. And in capitalist society, basically, there are two types of people. Those who own means of production, those who own means of production legally, and the rest of the people can be called workers. Again, there may be different gradations among workers or non-capitalists or just people, masses, on the basis of skills, services they provide, standard of living, urban-rural distinctions, or other types of distinctions. But fundamentally, there are only two classes of people. A small minority, a small class of people consists of those called capitalists who legally own the means of production. And rest of them are workers. The workers, even managers are workers, teachers are workers, engineers are workers, because all of them earn their salary or wages or facilities on the basis of their work. They are all workers. They may not understand this if they lack in revolutionary consciousness, which is the case with early capitalist society. Uh, that's a different thing. But as system develops and contradictions and crises become more vivid, then people start realizing that yes, there are only two classes of people, and they have contradictions. And this leads to various forms of crisis now. In this crisis situation, emerges a different kind of politics based on mobilization of workers. Now comes a communist party, a socialist party, communist party, which talks of dictatorship of proletariat or workers. And it produces revolutionary consciousness among workers so that workers can be mobilized to form unions, socialist parties, communist parties, and ultimately bring uh, the socialists or the communists to power. When they come to power, it becomes a socialist society. And in this socialist society, state represents the workers' interest, not the interest of capitalists. This can be done by collectivizing the means of production or nationalization, as in Indian language, in Indian experiences, what we call nationalization is also something akin to collective uh, ownership of means of production. So industries, banks, schools, uh, land, everything belongs to state, and state represent the interests of all the workers. Everyone is worker. There is no capitalist because nobody has legal ownership of means of production. So everybody has become worker. It's a uh, society of that kind. Although complete equality is not yet established, but nobody is a capitalist because the means of production have been collectivized. And there is a long process of conflict resolution. As soon as a socialist society is established, conflicts do not end. Conflicts continue. Conflicts between the political elite, for example, and workers may continue, or conflicts between agricultural workers and urban industrial workers may continue for some time, or conflicts between different occupations or educational groups may continue for some time, but state as a representative of workers' interests ensures that these differences are gradually mitigated and ultimately abolished. Ultimately, we have a communist society. In communist society, there are no classes. Because there are no classes, so this society does not need a state. Because state is an institution of society that has monopoly over use of power. Now, since there are no power inequalities anymore, so you don't need state, and the history ends. And history ends in the sense now the contradictions between classes, basically the classes have been abolished. So contradictions are also abolished, and there is no further development of productive forces. Or if there is development of productive forces, if there is development of technology, that development of technology is used to promote the interests of all the people, the workers, all the workers, all are workers, all the people are now workers, and it goes for the collective interests of all the workers. Sometimes, something like the utopia of Ram Raj of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi in Sarvodaya and Swaraj was also thinking something similar to that. That, but in its framework, uh, capitalists had not been removed from the ownership of capital. They are made the trustee of their capital. And once they become the trustee of their capital, they are not using their capital or the profits of industry to enhance their own interests, but they use profit for the enhancement of interest of the entire society or all the workers. So history ends. Uh, history will end with the establishment of communist society. So according to historical materialism, there was no history when there was no development of tools and techniques, or maybe millions of years of human existence, there was no history because tools and techniques of development were not produced. They were not invented. And there were no classes. Class formation starts with the development of tools and techniques. First in the form of master slaves, then in the form of landlords and vassals, estates and vassals, a hierarchy of vassals, and a trading community in between. And then come the capitalist society, so relations of production are changing. When relations of production are abolished by collectivizing or by putting means of production under the collective control, then the history ends. Because this history has no inequality, no conflicts, no need for power, no need for state. Sometimes students ask a question, what is the difference between a socialist society and a communist society? The only difference is that socialist society has a state which works to promote the collective interests of workers, and communist society is one in which state itself withers away. There is no need for a state. There may be some government kind of thing, but there is no state. State withers away. People contribute. People remain workers. It is natural. According to Marxist principles, it is natural for us to work and to contribute to society. People contribute according to their capacity and receive according to their needs. Today, when we talk of historical materialism or Marxist theory, it has also become important to have a critical look at. So, from today's perspective, so much has been written on society. So, from today's perspective, can we accept Marxist theory of historical materialism as such, or it needs certain kinds of changes? It needs changes, perhaps, because we have a general acceptance of political democracy and welfare state. In its true, unadulterated form, a capitalist society is not a welfare society. Capitalists are crude, ruthless, exploitative, greedy, and concerned about their own profits only, nothing else. While a modern society becomes a welfare society and accepts the framework of political democracy, that everybody has equal vote. Then politics of identity. Worldwide today, the kind of movements and social movement, neo-social movements are taking place. They are based on identity, or identity is reviving. One can explain revival of identity in the framework of globalization also, but again, in this small video, that is beyond the scope. linked with global acceptance of capitalism, globalization, or free flow of capital, knowledge, and labor across national boundaries. This is what globalization means. And people, some theoreticians think uh, that in the age of globalization, Marxist theory does not apply as such. And one major change that has occurred in this society is the collage of economy, polity, media. There is control of media on people and control on media by global power. This control on media is twining of global power, standard of living, consumerism, national and local politics, and media. Roughly, we can use a term post-modernization for this. All the post-modernization means many more things. Basically, it means that lack of essentialism or rejection of the idea that there can be a theory, Marxist or any other theory, which can apply to all societies, all circumstances, and all times. That is postmodernized. And this society, this postmodern global society, is based on hyper differentiation. While scientific age, capitalist age, industrial age produce differentiation, this globalization process is leading to hyper differentiation. Means different types of skills or different types of expertise have to come together uh, to contribute to production process. Nobody has monopoly over application of knowledge. You require experts from other disciplines to practice knowledge. That is hyper differentiation. And because of all these things, now that neat division of society or a clear division of society between capitalists and workers cannot be conceptualized. Workers are divided into different classes or groups, and they are brought together by the necessity of globalization and postmodernization. This goes into critique of historical material. Thank you. I hope that this concept of historical materialism is clear to you. Uh, Friends, in short, I will say that historical materialism means that everything changes and there is a cause of change. That cause of change is the development of forces of production. That part of forces of production, which is legally owned, is called means of production. And corresponding to each development in stages, developments occur in stages. Corresponding to each uh, stage of development, there is a kind of or a quality of social relationships. You can use the term class relations for that. And class relations are the basic cause of change in society, contradictions in class relations. And all other things, usually sociologists, demographers, political scientists, anthropologists, and others attribute to change, like changes in culture, polity, religion, values, beliefs, personality, are only of secondary nature. Changes in forces of production are basic. All other changes are secondary or derived from changes in relations of production. And for millions of years, humans had no history. When technology developed or means of production or tools and techniques started developing, now comes history. History means a process of change in class relations, which has corresponding relations of values, beliefs, religion, polity, and family. This is what historical materialism means. And this also means that once means of production have been collectivized in a socialist state, the socialist state will move towards a situation in which state is used to promote the interests of all the people, all the workers. All are workers now because there is no exploited, there is no legal owner of means of production. So all are workers. The state will uh, act to promote the interests of workers. Means interests of entire humanity. And a time will come when differences between people will vanish and history ends. So sometime you must have heard the term or used the term end of history. End of history means uh, a time when there are no changes in class relations or relations of production. And that is because the means of production had been collectivized. And therefore, there is no scope for class relations to change. Class relations do not exist. And when class relations do not exist, the history ends. Thank you very much.